Hi, hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Racing Angle. I'm your host, Logan Morris. This one titled Episode 7, Let's Cut to the Chase. Wonder why we called it that. Interesting. It's the bloody chase. It's back. It is the bloody chase, to get our British on. Thanks, Freddie, for tuning in. We do appreciate you. Uh, I had a funny feeling it was coming back home, he says. Well, we'll get into all that. But first of all, happy 2026 is our first show of 2026. First of many, I do believe. Good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, as they say. So we're back, and hopefully we're better than ever, right? Hopefully. How was our holidays? Our holidays was fantastic. We just enjoyed ourselves. We got ready for racing, and we are chomping at the bit. I mean, with bated breath to finally have some racing cars back on track, and we're getting ever so close to that. The Chili Bowl going on, and then of course the Rolex 24 next weekend. And so we just took some time, Peyton and I, and relaxed, and we've gotten refreshed, so to speak, and we're ready to go. We've had some personal issues and trials and tribulations as well, but all is well. Everything is on the upswing, and so we're thankful for that. Peyton back there on the ones and twos. She's going to make a return here in the next week or two on screen because I want her to make some bold NASCAR predictions. And she is as spicy as your favorite queso, and so we think she should absolutely come on back for that. Anywho, there's a lot to talk about, and so what do you say we get to talking about it with our hot lap headlines? Alrighty, so here is the big news, the big brouhaha. That's right, Freddie. We're going to talk about it together, buddy. I want you to help me steer this conversation. The chase is back. The chase is back. And so what does it look like now? Still 16 drivers. That's the key. But no more win and you're in. No more win and you're in. And so that's quite interesting, and I'll wait for producer Peyton to put a graphic up for me so we can talk a little bit more about it. And no more winning, you're in. Some like it, some don't. 55 points is now a win worth, and that's pretty interesting. 55 points, it goes up from 40. There's a lot of controversy, right? Some people wanted the 36 races, the old school way, the Latford system, the Winston the system, whatever you wanted to call it. I personally think this is the best of both worlds. I really do. I think that if you like the playoffs, but you thought maybe it was too gimmicky at certain points, and I think it did fall into that on occasion, I think this works, right? If you didn't like the playoffs and you wanted a little more traditional, I think we got a lot closer to that. And I know there's still going to be a swath of people that aren't necessarily happy, and I get it. But you have to applaud NASCAR for trying, for taking a step and trying. And if you really are mad at it, if you really hate it out there in podcast land, sure, you can blame NASCAR, but you know who you can really blame? Mark Martin. Mark Martin screamed regular season points to the hilltop. He is what moved them to get anywhere near the old format. He's what moved them. And so it looks like we were going to get a 3-3-4, he said. And now we got the 10-race chase. So the chase returns as the championship format for all three national series beginning in 2026, replacing that elimination-style playoff with a points-based postseason modeled after that 2004 to 13 era. Let's pause there. Why is that interesting? Well, a lot of people say NASCAR's decline started with the untimely passing of Dale Earnhardt Sr. That is not true. Well, how is that not true, Logan? The ratings don't bear that out. The cultural relevance doesn't bear that out. NASCAR's cultural peak was probably 2005-ish, 2006, right around the time of Talladega Nights. Yes, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby, as everybody has seen that movie, and if you haven't seen the movie, you're lying. And so I think that's interesting, number one, because it does go back to when NASCAR was truly at its cultural peak. Did that have hide nor hair to do with the system that they crowned a champion in that era? I don't know. I can't tell you. That's a big guess. But it does call back to that. It calls back to that era. It calls back to that time. Because if you recall, and maybe if you're a youngin, you don't, and that's okay. I'm not that old myself. Just turned 31 over this holiday break. Blessed to see it, and I look forward to being here at least another 31 years. I'll be here a lot longer than that. I've been doing this show. So culturally, again, it was huge around the time of Talladega Nights, which again I think was 2004, 5, 6, somewhere in that range. It was huge. It was everywhere. You couldn't go into a Walmart or a Target or wherever you shop and get your groceries without seeing some giant cardboard cutout of something NASCAR related. Great time. I mean, if you liked the sport as a child, I mean, Jeff Gordon was there in the aisle, right? His Rainbow Warrior colored car was there. If you liked Jimmy Johnson and his constant domination, it was there. And of course, Dale Jr. was right there with him, right? I mean, especially in this Buds for You car, that iconic number 8, and then later on the 88 in that Amp Energy car. It was at the cultural peak. And so I like that we're going back to a callback of that. I do. I really do. What don't I like about it? Well, here's what I don't necessarily love, because I want to be fair to it. I don't love that the winning you're in is gone. I think winning is important, and not enough drivers win to make it to warrant it to be worthless. It's not like, yes, more people win now than ever. I get that. We have more parity now than ever. NASCAR wants it that way. That's why cars are like a blanket these days. But still, we never got really in danger of having more than 16 different winners. Now, will there come a season? Probably someday, but it hasn't happened so far, at least, not to my knowledge. And so I would have not minded the winning or in staying. I will miss some of the elimination drama, the cutoff races, so to speak. I did, and I know people going, well, it was manufactured drama. Yeah, isn't everything? Isn't everything manufactured drama? Isn't the college football playoff manufactured drama? Isn't the NFL playoff manufactured drama? We could just run the regular season and determine our champion that way. We could. You might say, well, how, pray tell, could we do that? Best record wins. Then you go down to a bunch of tiebreakers. Freddie says he thinks the most was 14 or 15 different drivers in a season that won. I think that's right. I think a few years ago it was 14 or 15, because that's what kept Martin Truex out of the playoffs that one year, because he could not find a win for whatever reason. Still very consistent, still competitive. Don't get me wrong, I'm not putting down MTJ, but he couldn't find a win. I think it was that last full-time season for him. And so, yeah, that would be interesting. I will miss the winning your end aspect to a certain extent. Now, that being said, I understand the argument against it, right? Harrison Burton a few years ago wasn't really a playoff driver. Yes, he was a playoff driver, but did he really deserve to be a playoff driver? No, probably not. I understand that argument. But I also understand the argument for I like a good underdog story, a good wild card, a good who thought they were going to get in moment. Those are cool. I've learned to appreciate them. Because unlike a lot of people, I don't sit on my keister and go, damn, this system's awful. I try to find things to enjoy about each system. If it had gone back to the old school Winston format, I'd have found things to enjoy about it. I think we as a fan base in motorsports find a lot to complain about all the time. And to be fair, I think we do that as a society. Personally, I like to find what's cool about things. And I thought the winning your in was okay. Yes, I understood gimmicky. Yes, I understood some guys got in that didn't necessarily deserve to be there. But hell, what is deserve? I mean, it's 36 races that you work your ass off. I think everybody deserves it on some level. Couple more things to break down. Champions will be determined by total points over the final stretch of 10 races. That's the chase. 10 races in the Cup Series. Now, it will be 9 in the newly named O'Reilly Auto Parts Series and just 7 in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Again, no eliminations and no automatic winning your in berths. I like that it is that it requires consistency. I like that it's still 16 myself. I know some say it's too high. I get it, and you can make a wonderful argument it is too high. I'm not arguing that. But I think that in today's era, we need as many fan bases to be invested throughout the season as we can. And the reality is that P16 is going to be 100 points out when you look at the points when they reset them at the end of the regular season. It's going to take a hell of a run for a P16, for a 16 seed, let's say, to ever be champion. The kind of run that you would go, damn, they probably deserve to be champion. So I'm not upset at that. I know people say, well, 10, they should go with 10 like they used to, or 12 like they used to, or this and a couple of wild cards. What the best thing about this is it's simple. Now we can get in an elevator with Joe Blow and go, here's the playoff system. The top 16 in points make the playoffs. That's it. The top 16 in points. However that is scored is how that is scored, and that's who gets in. Where it took, frankly, an algebraic equation to really explain properly. Can you imagine explaining the old format to a new fan? Can you imagine trying to explain that? Can it be done? Yeah, but it takes a couple of study sessions. You don't get it in 2 minutes. You get it in 20, and hey, come back Thursday. We'll explain the rest of it to you. And so I like that it's simple. Again, like I said, I like that it's a callback to the old days. What I don't like, I will miss the win in your end. I will miss that. I will miss some of the elimination style moments. Because the Hail Mary probably does not happen without the elimination format, right? The Jimmy Johnson, Martin Truex, Roval fiasco doesn't happen without the elimination style moments. Probably Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott probably doesn't happen without the elimination style moments. Again, I know the old schoolers go, well, we did it this way for such a long time. And yes, that's true. And for 70-some years, it worked out great. However, times also change. What I'm here to tell you, and I know this is insane these days. A lot of people don't think about this. Both sides have a point. Both sides have a point. It's not one or the other. It isn't. It's not one or the other. I agree that you have to have some entertainment aspect for the newer fans. I also agree that maybe it's gone a little too far. I mean, maybe we're not meant to, we won the first race of this round, so we can pretty much sandbag and test and do whatever we want to do these next two. I don't know if that's that attractive. I like the idea that hopefully this new format will make people go, we have to try every single race. Because you should. You're getting paid to do so. Nobody should go, oh, we can just rest and do such and such. Like that's silly. I hate it in the NFL when that happens. I hate it in college football when these smug athletes opt out and go, well, we might get hurt. Well, you probably knew you weren't going to a national title 6 weeks ago. Why didn't you opt out then? I like that, hey, we're going to have to push and bust ass, hopefully, all season because you should. You're getting paid to bust ass all season for 38 weeks. I know it's 36 in the regular season, but I'm sure that no one is, no one's taking a flyer on the Clash. No one is not getting paid for the All-Star race at Dover this season. And so I hope that they're right about that and this format comes to pass in that way. Because it is kind of garbage. I've had conversation with friends where they go, yeah, well, so and so was, they won that round, so they weren't worried too much about the last two races. Shouldn't they be? Weren't we still counting the points? Weren't they still getting paid? Freddie says you can't please everyone. You're right, Freddie. You can't please everyone. I just think, as NASCAR fans, as motorsport fans, and no matter what the format was going to be, 334, a 436, whatever it was going to be, I was going to say this, and I still firmly believe what I'm about to say. If you like the format, give it a chance. If you don't like the format, give it a chance. The people that go, well, I saw this once back in 2006 or back in 2010 or back in such and such, that's a whole different world ago. Hopefully, you're a whole different you. How you perceive it might be different. If you didn't like it, then give it this season and see how it goes in practice. Because a few things have changed since then. In motorsports, a lot has changed. But here's two big ones that weren't a thing. If you were against the chase, here's two things that have changed majorly since the original chase. Number one, the parity of the field. NASCAR intentionally has these cars made to where it is really hard to get major advantages. That's number one. I know that Jimmy Johnson won 6 of his championships in this era. I get it. And so some people are worried about, what if somebody dominates? What if somebody does this? Theoretically, yes, it's possible. And I don't want to discount that. These guys are great. These guys and gals are working on these cars, and certainly these drivers are the best in the world at what they do. So I don't want to discount that possibility. But the likelihood of somebody running off another Jimmy Johnson drive for 5, not very. NASCAR, again, has gone so far as to make sure the cars are pretty even keel nowadays. Hard to do. And frankly, does anybody look like Jimmy Johnson out there nowadays? No, the guys you think would. I mean, Kyle Larson low-key had a down. Yes, he won the championship. I get it. But he low-key had a down year last season. Kyle Busch certainly doesn't look capable of it right now. Is that him? Is that RCR? Is it a combination of both? Chase Elliott, he had a very quiet 2 wins. Denny Hamlin, I guess it's possible, but at some point he's going to start going down the other side of the path. And what I mean by that is maybe not being quite as good as he once was. Is that 2026? Is that 2027? I don't know. But it's coming sooner rather than later. And stage points are still a thing. And now I know I watched the press conference. People went, stage points still a thing? Are stage points still a thing? Get rid of stage points. I know. Everybody said that. Why? What's wrong with them? And I know everyone's going to say, well, imagine stopping the game and evening it up. Yeah, I get it. But do you want to miss green flag laps? I don't. I don't want to miss a green flag lap. That's what I'm paying my cable bill or my streaming service to watch. I don't want to miss a second. When there are cars on the track, I think we should have had a way to watch the North Wilkesboro test this week. I don't want to miss a second. And so stage breaks allow us the opportunity to see more green flag laps. I don't want them to run off 25 of them at Bristol if I'm not able to tune in and see them. And Mark Martin said at the press conference, there are so many things that we don't think about that are intertwined in how this sport works. There's so many contracts, so many different. I don't want to get in a world where I'm missing green flag laps. I feel like the races are short enough as is these days. Especially because, by God, we can't have 500-mile races anymore unless it's a crown jewel, because people have the attention span of fleas. I don't want that. So if stage breaks are what's helping us keep and see more green flag laps, then I'm all here for stage breaks. You can go ahead and add the racing angle on that, and you can call me anything you like, but I like seeing as much action as I can. I like seeing as much of the race as I can. Period. The end. We're going to come back. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to break down a couple more of these details, and then we're going to move it along. There is more things to chat about, but obviously today's big news is Monday's big news, right? The chase is back. So with that, we'll talk the chase. We'll talk Tony Stewart's return to NASCAR for at least one day only. And we'll talk a few more things, and we'll talk some things I'm not even planning on talking about, I'm sure. So stay tuned. Don't move, and we'll be back in just about 2 minutes. Welcome back, boys and girls, to another edition of the Racing Angle. If you've missed the first portion of our show, we've been talking about the return of the chase, and we're going to talk for a few more minutes about it, but I don't want to spend too much longer on it. There's more to talk about. But again, to recap, it'll be 10 races in the Cup Series, 9 in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, formerly known as the Xfinity Series, and 7 in the Craftsman Truck Series. No eliminations, no automatic winning or reimburse. Wins now pay 55 points. I like that. And again, chase fields are set strictly by the regular season points. That's going to be 16 Cup drivers, 12 Xfinity drivers, and just 10 truck drivers. And the regular season points leader, and this is something we got to break down, will receive a 25-point advantage entering the postseason. Let's talk about that for a second, shall we? 25 points. Some say that's enough. I've heard some say that's not enough. I've heard some say it's too steep. I've heard some say, it's, everyone's got an opinion, right? Opinions are like, fingers. Most everybody's got them. So I've heard a lot of people talk about it. I got to tell you, my opinion on it will depend on the year. And, well, what, pray tell, do you mean, Logan? I mean, hypothetically this year, let's say William Byron beats out Kyle Larson for the regular season title by 2 points. Then all of a sudden that 2-point swing becomes 25. I don't love that. I don't love that. I don't love that at all, because you only beat him by 2 points. At the same time, if you have the regular season lead by 100 points, I don't foresee a world where that's going to happen, but never say never. Then it's down to 25 just because we hit the chase, the postseason portion of the schedule. So I like that it's a reward for the regular season. I do, because the regular season should count. The regular season should mean a lot. It is the bulk of the schedule. It's the first 26 we're going to watch, and that should be talked about and given and given credence to. But again, it depends on the year how that flies. If they win it by about 24, 25, then, man, hit the nail on the head, didn't we? Hit the nail on the head. And then some interesting tracks for our chase this year. That they're going to include Darlington, Worldwide Technology Raceway, Bristol, Kansas, Las Vegas, the Charlotte Roval, Phoenix, Talladega, Martinsville, and remember, the championship race goes down to Homestead, Miami. Now, obviously, it was a big deal. It was a big hubbub when it was announced that the championship race is going back to Homestead. Now that might not mean so much. NASCAR, I'm sure, is hoping like hell that coming into that championship race, we have a close battle between at least 2 combatants, if not 3 or 4. Because say we know who the champion is, then I mean that's gonna grind some gears. That's gonna chap some people's asses, because we're coming out of this era where you never knew who was going to win the championship until Phoenix. And I know some people say, "Yeah, how stupid is that?" But you have to admit it made for some fun moments. It made for some drama. It made for some serious adrenaline. It will, unless you're a fan of the driver that clinches the championship. If we ever see the scenario where they clinch it before coming into the final race, that would be a real chapper. Freddie says, Rockingham 2027 championship weekend for all 3 series. I wouldn't be opposed. We'll have to talk to the fine folks of the IHRA, but because they've bought the track over the holiday break. That broke, and we covered it, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. But here's some interesting. What driver do you think is hurt most by this format change? Pardon me. What driver do you think is hurt most by this format change? And I got to tell you, I think Team Penske, and especially Joey Logano, is hurt by this format change. I really do. I'm going to take a sip of water here as I got a tickle in the throat. But I think that Joey Logano is hurt by this. And somewhere my buddy Ryan Hill is going, well, you just don't like Joey Logano. No, it's got nothing to do with that. I'm loving the bald look. He looks great. A little stone cold Joey Logano. But how many times do we see Team Penske go through a summer slump? And we say, well, they'll get good around the time of the playoffs. You can't do that now. We often see Penske go through slumps and then get it together for the postseason. That's not going to fly in 2026 and beyond. And I'll tell you, driver, I think this format helps. And I know stop the presses. But two guys it helps. Joe Gibbs Racing, Christopher Bell, and Denny Hamlin. You don't have two more consistent drivers than those two. Christopher Bell is constantly in the good graces in the running. Denny Hamlin, same thing. He can roll out of bed and get you top 5 most weeks. When it comes to consistency, I think Gibbs has got something going with Bell and Hamlin in this format. Now I know that Hamlin doesn't seem to have long. I would guess he'll retire at the end of 2027. That's not confirmed. That's just all what we believe as far as his contract with Gibbs goes. But I think for the final years of his career, however long they may be, this format benefits him big time and gets him closer to a championship, assuming that he's not hitting the other side of the cliff in terms of age and things of that nature catching up. Obviously, Denny Hamlin's been going through a lot. We, of course, send our condolences to him for the loss of his father, and we pray for his mother and her full-fledged recovery. And on top of the heartbreaker way he lost the championship. But I think this bodes well for his championship chances, assuming he can stay at the same level performance-wise. All right, some other news to get to. And I didn't think I'd say this in 2026. You never say never, but I didn't think it was coming this soon. Tony Stewart is back in NASCAR at least for one night only. In case you missed it, he's going to join colleague racing for the Daytona Truck Series opener. Boy, you can give credit to Smoke for this. He's not. He could easily go in there because obviously this is part of the Ram initiative, right? The Ram initiative, trying to get buzz, trying to get the executives at Dodge to pay attention to what NASCAR can do because it's no secret they want to. The folks at Ram and colleague, they want NASCAR Cup Series stuff in 27, 28 at the latest. And so they're trying to create buzz. And boy, does Tony Stewart create buzz. He could easily have said, yeah, I'll do a track I dominate, or I'll do a place that, nice and easy, a nice and easy road course. Nothing against road courses, but it's a lot less stressful than the high banks of Daytona. Freddie Bannister excited about it. He can't wait to see Smoke again. I got to tell you, I didn't see this coming. Not this soon. We all know that Tony Stewart had some issues with the way NASCAR was being ran. And he made no bones about that and the changes of the sport. We all saw what happened with Stuart Haas. I don't know if those two things are related or not, but we know that his priorities shifted over to the NHRA, and I'm not suggesting there's a shift back. He will run a full season for the NHRA this year. But I did not think, given how rocky things were just a couple of years ago, that he would be back in NASCAR this soon. Now it is just a one-off, but who knows where it leads? What does he think of the now evergreen Chargers? What does he think of Steve Phelps stepping down? What does he think of the format and things of that nature? Does he have some interest in getting back in? Is this dipping his toe in the water and seeing how things go? I'm purely speculating on that. I don't want anyone saying, "Well, you said so and so." No, this might just be a way for him to see if he can get a win at Daytona and kind of give a little closure to the NASCAR career. I have no idea. But we know that he's been very critical in NASCAR in recent years. And so very, very surprising, pleasantly surprising to see him strap back in to any sort of NASCAR equipment. And Daytona, again, that shows you still that competitive fire. If you're going to go for broke. And it doesn't matter what series, everything's bigger at Daytona. Everything means more at Daytona. It's Daytona. It's the World Center Racing. I can't properly convey just how much it means more. We also saw that Ricky Stenhouse is going to be in that truck race today for Nice Motorsports, and he's not a truck driver by any means, but he is for Daytona. And so just incredible stuff. What could it mean for the future? I don't know. But if he doesn't crash, Tony Stewart will compete for the win, because Tony Stewart is a lot of things. And I've said some good things about Tony Stewart. I've said some bad things about Tony Stewart. I've interviewed Tony Stewart. But one thing he is one hell of a driver, and he's a winner. And so if he can avoid the chaos, and it's landmine central at Daytona, as we all know, especially in the truck series, he'll compete for the win. All right, a couple other notes to get to. Jimmy Johnson is going to compete in the Daytona 500 with the provisional. You may have seen this last year with Elio Castroneves and Trackhouse. And now Jimmy Johnson and Legacy Motor Club have requested the provisional, and they've granted it, so he's locked in, doesn't have to worry about the duels or any of that. He is guaranteed an entry into the 500. And while that is very cool to see old 7-time out there and getting data for Legacy Motor Club and maybe trying to chase win number 84, I don't understand why a team, especially a full-time NASCAR team, would want to take the provisional, because with the provisional, you don't get the prize money. You don't get the prize money. You don't get the points. You get to compete for the trophy. That is pretty much it. And I'm not saying the trophy ain't great. We all love the trophy. It's a huge deal. You stay for breakfast. You do some media in the morning. No big deal. I get it. Yes, 41 cars will start. It's a 41-car field. Absolutely, it is. But I don't like it as a legacy guy, because I'm like, you're eating money. You are eating money. You are literally going, I don't need it. Because you don't get the prize money, you don't get the points. And you might say, well, Jimmy Johnson's a part-timer. What does he need the points for? Because every point is money. Every point is paid out at the end of the year. He will also compete in a truck series race that weekend with the truck series race that weekend with Tricon. So this truck race is just getting bigger and bigger. Frankly, right now it's got bigger names than the 500. I mean, how about that? Who would have thought? So Jimmy Johnson going to pull double duty that weekend. Or pardon me, he will. I'm wrong. He will not be doing double duty at Daytona. He's going to do double duty at San Diego. Pardon me. I got Daytona on the brain. But I don't like that they're using the provisional. I don't, because you don't get the prize money. But yes, Jimmy Johnson will compete in the San Diego street course truck race. And so he will pull double duty that weekend. So Jimmy Johnson now at least has 3 races on his schedule for 2025. I would expect more. IHRA purchased Rockingham Speedway. We'll see what all this means. Remember, IHRA is starting the stock car series. I think this probably plays into that a little bit. And then NHRA is adding 25 drivers to the original 50 best, similar to what we saw NASCAR do. So far, they've released 5 new names every Monday. We have Tony Schumacher, Robert Height, Erica Enders, Andrew Hines, Peter Biondo, Antron Brown, Ron Capps, Greg Anderson, Matt Smith, and Dan Fletcher have all been added to the list. So far, I think they're all worthy of it. I really do. And so it's cool and exciting to see 75 years of the NHRA, just like it was cool and exciting to see for NASCAR a few years ago. Really, really exciting stuff. Looking forward to their 75th campaign getting started in Gainesville in March. I'm expecting some pretty big NHRA news probably tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Probably tomorrow, but it's coming soon. So stay tuned for that on the channel. We're going to take one more break here, and then when we come back, we'll do some checkered thoughts. We'll get to some more comments from Freddie, and then we'll bring her home. So we'll be back real soon right here on the Racing Angle. Welcome back, everybody, to the Racing Angle. Great to be here. I'm your host, Logan Morris. Do me a great favor if you haven't already. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, we'd like you to do that. And don't be afraid to follow us on our socials. They're running in a ticker occasionally down below. Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok. Don't be afraid to follow us. We will get more content going on the X as racing season begins. I'm going to do some live tweeting, some live Xing. I don't know if it's still called live tweeting or not, but I'm going to do some live posting as races are going on. So that's a goal of mine for 26 to give some thoughts, some of my own checkered thoughts, if you will. And so please, again, give us a follow, give us a share, give us a like, hit that like button, helps us in the algorithm. And so it helps us show up a little bit more. And we just greatly appreciate it. Freddie, especially, greatly appreciate you, man. You tune in every week. You ask all the time. We're in touch. Appreciate you, man. And so I don't think it goes unnoticed. Anywho, what do you say we do a little of our own checkered thoughts? All right, there's been some interesting quotes in the world of motorsports this week, and I want to touch on a few of them. Number one, I'm gonna paraphrase this one just for PG purposes. If you saw the Dale Jr. download this week, Dale Jr. made clear he doesn't like street courses and road courses. He likes short tracks, and he doesn't feel like we needed to go to the LA Coliseum. And to all of those things, I say here. I have nothing against trying some new things. And I think some of it's been cool. I think Chicago was kind of cool. I thought the Coliseum was completely stupid. Absolutely a complete and utter waste of time. We're building a track for and flying across the country for a race that doesn't count for points. Complete and utter waste of time. Waste and utter time and money. And then when you saw that there was, there might have been enough to fill a flea market last year. Kind of proved it wasn't exactly everything it's cracked up to be. That or maybe Wiz Khalifa's not a draw. I don't know. I just completely agree with Dale Jr. on this. NASCAR needs to know their bread and butter right now. We got to get back to mattering to the people we can matter to before we can go out west in LA and like. NASCAR has a hard time understanding where they're at in the culture relevance game, and it's not very high right now. The cultural relevance of the sport is as low as it's been since the King's heyday. Freddie says, I don't think Dale Jr., I don't think he necessarily mind the Glen or Sonoma, those two. He said, he said that he doesn't mind road courses, and he's not going to be a hard ass about that. But the street course and all that, yeah, and I agree. Like, yes, there is a portion where you do have to try some new things, and I try to embrace, right? I don't want to sit here and rag on the sport, like, because you never know, it could be cool. But out of all the new ideas we've tried, the street courses and all those things, the worst was the LA Coliseum. Absolutely stupid. Absolutely stupid to put in that kind of effort for literally no payoff. And then we're standing there with podium finishes, and I'm not putting down podium finishes. That's not NASCAR. It hasn't been NASCAR. Why are we doing it now? Freddie says, I think trading the street course in Chicago for Chicagoland is perfect. Amen to that. Like, there's a way to get to these markets while still looking like what we do. There is. And I know that LA and that California market is huge. I get that. Figure out what's going on Auto Club and make that work. Figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, then, well, I'm glad Steve Phelps is gone because somebody needs to figure it out. The fact that it even happened is stupid. It was putting on great races with this car. I mean, if they don't at least get the short track to happen, I mean, we should sue NASCAR for malpractice. If we don't go back there at all, and I don't think we will, what an absolute cluster. What an abysmal dumpster fire. But neither here nor there. I agree with Dale Jr. We need to quit going outside of our box, especially when we're trying to just get back to where our box was. If you don't like, again, I want to take this quote from Steve O'Donnell. This is taken from the press conference we saw. Mark Martin was the first guy in the room to stand up and say, I want to go back to full season points. There were a lot of folks who wanted to throw Mark out of the room initially, but what Mark did was got us to a position where what's the right balance, and the balance between those who like the playoff and those who like the full season points. So if you are particularly pissed off about the format change, Mark Martin is your guy. And frankly, let's look at it this way, folks. If for some reason this format turns into a cluster, a dumpster fire, an absolute swing and a miss, in some ways, Mark Martin, his legacy rides with it, because they have made very clear that it was probably going to be a 3-3-4 had Mark Martin not been in the room, and to a lesser extent, Dale Jr. But Mark Martin was screaming to high heaven, kicking and screaming, and I don't mean the old Will Ferrell classic, about we want full season points. So in a lot of ways, his legacy rides with this, and so that's going to be pretty interesting to see how it shakes out, to see how we look at it in 5 or 10 years. Speaking of how we look at things in 5 or 10 years, how are we going to view the previous champions of this era? How are we going to view Joey Logano? How are we going to view the 2 Kyle Larson championships? How are we going to view Chase Elliott's championship? Are we going to nitpick and play revisionist history? Interesting to think about. Interesting to think about, because we as NASCAR fans have a tendency to do that. God knows they're trying to do it to Richard Petty. God knows they're trying to do it to the King. How will you view champions from this era that just ended? Are they lesser? Are they the same? Are they as valuable as Jimmy Johnson and Dale Sr.? Do they hold up to the King? How will you view them? Interesting question to think about. And I'm sure I'll have a red flag rant on that one of these days. Tony Stewart believes that the Chili Bowl is bigger than the Daytona 500. And here's the quote. Back in the day, I was scared to say that this was bigger than Daytona, but it is. It truly is. It's not in the world's eyes, but in true motorsports fans' eyes, they know this is bigger. You got 400 guys you got to beat to win this race. Not the same 40 that you see every week at the NASCAR track. This is probably one of the hardest events to win. Every time those guys go on the racetrack in competition, it matters. They get points. It's all part of getting themselves seated for Saturday night. You can't have a mistake. Where in comparison, Daytona 500, you can make mistakes the first 400 miles and still go out and win the race. You can't do that here. Again, I've come a long way on my opinions of Tony Stewart. But I don't necessarily value his opinion on this, because you know what Tony Stewart never did? Win the Daytona 500. I don't necessarily need to know what you think how the value of winning Daytona is, because you haven't done it. You didn't do it. You couldn't do it. No offense to you. You know, he's on the Mount Rushmore of motorsports for most people. But I don't necessarily care about his opinion on the value of the Daytona 500, because you couldn't win the Daytona 500. I don't necessarily want Kyle Busch's opinion right now on it either. I'll take Denny Hamlin's. He's a guy that's won it multiple times. I will certainly take Richard Petty's. 7 of those bad boys. I'm not putting down the Chili Bowl, but to say it's in the same breath as the Daytona 500 is just silly. It's just silly revisionist history, even if you don't like what NASCAR has become. And there's a lot of old heads out there that don't. But even if you don't like what NASCAR has become, the Daytona 500, only the Indy 500 compares. That's the only thing that can remotely be bigger. And, it's kind of like, you may not like what WWE is right now, but WrestleMania is still WrestleMania. AEW can have all the success in the world. TNA can have all the success in the world. But I don't know if anyone's ever going to touch WrestleMania. because it's WrestleMania. The brand, it's incensed. It's the same thing. You may not love the NFL right now. Is anybody going to touch the Super Bowl? No. We're all going to sit there with our chips and our Cheez-Its and our crackers and our soft drinks and our adult beverages if you're into that, and we're going to watch it whether you're an NFL fan or not. There are some things that are just bigger than the sports themselves, and the Daytona 500 is that. And I think, with all due respect to Tony Stewart, who has forgotten more about motorsports than I'll ever know, I think that he has a skewed opinion of it for two reasons. Number one, you've never won it. Number two, your opinion of NASCAR has not been the highest over the last 5 to 10 years. You can't cheapen the Daytona 500. You just can't. It is absolutely the creme de la creme. Doesn't get much bigger than that. Like I said, only the Indy 500, in my view, compares. All right, couple more things to get to before moving on. We got right now, let's look at our lap ahead. Let's look at it. And you know what's ahead? The Clash is ahead. All right, so pull up that Clash countdown for me, would you, Producer Peyton? We got to see it. We're just 18 days. Just 18 days, 5 seconds and counting. We're getting ready to go to minute 3. We are so close. I mean, I can practically smell the burnt rubber. Just 18 days to the Clash. What else we got coming up? We have the Roar before the 24 this weekend. And then next weekend we have the Rolex 24. And then, of course, we're moving right along to the Daytona 500. We are so incredibly close to motorsports being fully back. And I know it's a short off season, but my goodness, doesn't it feel long. So just incredible how long it feels despite how short it really is. God, I mean, I miss it. I miss it all the time. And so, again, we got the Rolex coming up next weekend. We'll break some of that down next week right here on the Racing Angle. And then we get the Daytona 500 on February 15th. I mean, you talk about a nice Valentine's Day. Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that in my estimation. All right, with that, as we come up on another hour, as we come up to a close on our first Racing Angle of 2026, it's time for our final lap. All right, we want to remind you to please follow us on our social media. Again, you can give me a follow right there at my X account, or you can give a follow to the show's X account. We'd love you to do both. We'd love you to hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Freddie says he's going big. He thinks Jimmy wins the Daytona 500. Not as crazy a prediction as you may think. Remember, Jimmy did finish third in the 2025 edition of the Great American Race. So we'll see if he can best that by 2 spots in 2026. It would be great for him. It would be great for legacy. And I would bet even the King would be down there for the victory lane photos. And God knows we'd plaster them all over the Racing Angle. We sure would. Matter of fact, the celebration dinner that producer Peyton and I would have would frankly bankrupt a lot of average Americans. I mean, I'm ready to, you might want to serve it with a Lipitor and a stint. Anywho, thank you for tuning in so much. And before we go, we do want to tease one thing. Next week, we're going to do team previews. I know we said a month ago we were going to do them, but it didn't with all the news we had to get to, didn't feel like the week. And so team previews start next week, and we're starting big. We're talking HMS, Team Penske, and JGR. And so we might even have a special guest or two pop on in. We shall see. But we're going to do team previews next week, and we're starting with the quote-unquote big three, and we're excited about that. So with that, look, team previews next week. the Clash next weekend. We're so excited to be back for another year. Again, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give us a follow on all the socials. And Freddie, a special thank you to you for tuning in and messaging and just being a pal and just being a good dude, and looking forward to another season of racing with you. Keep it coming. You are appreciated. So until next time, I'm Logan Morris. It's been producer Peyton on the ones and twos. And until next time, this is the Racing Angle, and we'll see you at the next track.